Here to join us about the big news of the day, finally, after everybody's prognostications, podcasts, analysis, guesswork, it's come to an end. We got the announcement of AEW's Renewal, and joining us here to break things down from WrestleNomics and my co-host on Pollock and Thurston, the Brandon Thurston, who is joining me. Hello, Brandon.
Hello. We can officially retire all the podcasts. It's been a great 2-year, 5-year run, whatever you want to call it, and it's great to really have everything come to an end today.
The one casualty of this whole thing that nobody beyond me is going to truly appreciate is that Brandon had the ultimate graphic ready to go for a breaking news show.
I did. We're not going to get to use it now.
No, it's unfortunately just for my eyes only that we did not get to use this today. But the announcement did come down. It looked like a Variety got the heads up on everybody, and we got the quite a few details here. So All Elite Wrestling and Warner Brothers Discovery reached a new multi-year rights deal. The financial terms of the deal were not disclosed, but Variety notes that it is valued at upwards of $150 million per year. More on that later, when all elements are factored into the equation. AEW's Dynamite and Collision programs will remain on TBS and TNT respectively, but AEW will begin streaming their live programming on HBO Max simultaneously for US subscribers. That will be available to stream on demand in January 2025. Company president Tony Khan gave a statement about the renewal, and there were comments from Kathleen Finch that we can get into as well. The deal includes enhanced distribution rights across social media, in addition to potential new AEW programming on linear and digital platforms. AEW's live pay-per-views will be up on Max later in 2025. All marketing and promotion of those events will be exclusively centered on Max. So the key takeaway, we can start first with, Brandon, is the value of this deal. On the surface, we're looking at Dynamite, Collision, and the pay-per-view component that is not as like black and white as we were looking at it before, in that they're going to be available on Max for a discounted price, but you're not going to be shelving your traditional pay-per-view market either for people that are buying it elsewhere. You'll still be able to derive some revenue from other pay-per-view outlets.
Right, so we have controversy already. 150 million AAV is what Variety had reported. 170 is what Sports Business Journal is reporting. So I think that might have something to do with the fact that there's pay-per-view that's a part of this, and maybe some of what's being calculated in those all elements that they're referring to might be the pay-per-view. So it seems to me that maybe part of this deal is cannibalizing their current pay-per-view business, which I think is around $20 million a year. I think there's a question about, like, domestically in terms of the digital pay-per-view. If Fight Triller is going to continue to carry, I've sent a message to Fight to Triller asking if they're going to continue to carry pay-per-views digitally in January in the United States. That's a key there. I have little doubt that they're going to continue to carry it in international markets, but whether Max is the only place to get a digital pay-per-view for AEW going forward, I could see that being the case, but we'll try to find out. But traditionally, you'll be able to get, presumably you'll be able to get pay-per-view through cable and satellite. Unclear what social rights mean. They have what is the adjective? Enhanced social rights. Maybe they're able to tweet and share video clips or something like that.
Maybe they get the rights to the TikTok account for AEW. I don't know what enhanced social content will mean for them. It's kind of like this larger term. Once all elements.
Here's our graphic. That's
beautiful. Yeah, look at that. I mean, one that maybe it's one that we'll get some utilization out of his here. I just look at this. This was just a piece of art right here. Brandon Thurston.
The classic David Zaslav with the shades pointing at you. He's in Idaho on his big millionaires resort with all the other media moguls pointing at you with the shades on.
If you are looking, let's go with the $150 million number on its face of the details that we do know. How do you value that figure versus kind of the estimates that the range that you had looking into this in terms of like what does this mean for AEW if we're going with the $150 million figure?
So if we go 150, a long time ago, I caused a stir because I estimated that maybe they would get something like 3x to 5x. Now that was at a time when AEW's ratings were a lot stronger, and I was comparing it to what the value per viewer hour was with WWE. And you can make an opposite argument that's pretty negative when you look at NXT's deal, which was only $25 million with CW. In any case, I think it depends on how you slice this. This is so complex, but I think, let's say $75 million is the average annual value if Collision had existed all along across those 4 years, 5 years. Then we go from like 75 to 50, which is, I think, 2x, right? Wait, no. That's what's I have to bring up. Am I right about that?
75,
no.
Yeah.
75 times 2 is 150?
Yes.
Okay. And so that's 2x. If it was 3x, that would be what, 225, I think. It's a good deal. It's a good enough deal for, I think, I'm going to write an article I've mostly written, probably publish it tomorrow, but I think this is good enough for them to be profitable I could be fairly confident in that. As Tony Khan has basically said, and that's what he's kind of bragged about. I think this is a good deal. Maybe if the ratings were better, if ratings could always be better and you could have a better deal. But this is what they needed. This is within the range of what I think they need to be viable.
This was also reported on by Dave Meltzer at the Wrestling Observer newsletter, noting the $150 million per year figure, stating sources close to the negotiations said it will wind up substantially over that figure on an annual basis with all components figured in. The deal's for 3 years, the fourth being the option that was outlined by John Oran recently on Puck. The fourth year would be at a substantial increase in price. Rampage will be discontinued, as is reported, while the company is shopping around the new Shockwave show to other networks, as noted in our report on the site, and just adding that Dynamite and Collision would air live on Max, meaning that if you have Max, you would actually be able to watch the shows live if you're on the West Coast, as opposed to the 3-hour delay that they would be on, potentially. So I guess the question there would be about Rampage, in that, at least on its face, that would be one less hour of content for this. But again, like, you do have the pay-per-view component baked into this. So it becomes very difficult to just look at it from the previous deal to the new deal. And it remains to be seen. There's no official word that has been given out either by WBD or AEW regarding the state of Rampage.
And I suppose there could still be Ring of Honor maybe thrown in as part of some package. I mean, we're talking about this value, whether it's 150, whether it's 170. That's the value based on only payments from WBD. Mm-hmm. Now, if they make another deal with Fox, perhaps, they're probably not doing that for free. Maybe it's not a lot of money, but it's something additional. It could be Shockwave, could be AEW Ring of Honor, and Tony Khan made it pretty clear back in July that he's very open to rebranding Ring of Honor as AEW Ring of Honor.
And there's also the True TV component that could ultimately just be replays of the programming you're already producing. Like, that was in John Oran's report of something involving True TV. None of that was announced today. Going through just the various comments and what details were out there, what are the big questions that you have, Brandon?
Well, where Shockwave is going to go, if it's going to go anywhere. I understand now. You're telling me Dave is reporting that that Rampage is just going to go away. So what's going to happen with that? And if there's going to be anything for Ring of Honor, whether there's going to be pay-per-view domestically outside of Max, what the discount is going to be, what the price point is going to be. I would say, interestingly, we do know that all the library is going to be on Max.
That's right.
All this is only pertaining to U.S. Customers, by the way. None of this apparently pertains to people in Canada or other countries, for that matter. But it looks like all the library is going to be on Max. And that would include, presumably, next day. It'd be like watching W content on Hulu. There hasn't been a place for people with any sort of streaming access. If you're a cord cutter or a cord never who's never had access to cable, how do you watch AEW programming? It sounds pretty hard. So there will be a way. Other big questions is what's this going to mean for TV ratings? If you've got your broadcast on TBS and TNT, and also on Max streaming, that's going to probably increase your viewership because it's essentially opening up the coverage, which, as we all know, has been in annual decline since like 2014. That's going to bring your coverage from something like, I don't know, 70 million homes. And I was perusing the WBD IR site and looking at how many subscribers does Max have, and they reported at the end of June they had about 52 million subscribers. Now I'm sure a lot of those subscribers are just people who subscribe to cable and they get HBO. So this is a lot of redundancy here. So how many incremental homes are they going to be in? I don't know. A couple dozen million, 10, 20 million extra homes, something like that. It's going to add to the coverage, and presumably more coverage means more viewership. But is this viewership going to be measured? Are we going to end up with what would appear to be artificially low Nielsen ratings come January 2025? Or, this is a question for Raw on Netflix as well, is Nielsen going to actually cover and give us data for live broadcasts on streaming on a regular basis for things that aren't the NFL, which it has for the NFL, but not for other things really yet?
Beyond just, the news of AEW getting this deal, it's very big. I would say just more broadly, kind of lost in all of this discussion is the fact that Max is getting into pay-per-view next year. Like, that is not a component that they offer at the meantime. It means that they are now competing with your ESPN Pluses of the world. And part of the reason they don't have a set date to introduce these pay-per-views is that they are going to be working on that technology to be able to offer pay-per-views.
Yeah.
And
you view it as competition to what ESPN Plus is doing with UFC?
I think to a degree, yes. Like to me, this opens up the doors for Max for pay-per-view content. I don't think it's going to begin and end with just AEW and how they may view one-off events and things like that, much like Netflix is introducing it as well with, certain stunt events that they're doing as well. Wait, what are some of your thoughts today, just in terms of the deal points that have come out, and within a year from now, what time is Dynamite going to be ending most Wednesdays?
I don't think we've seen the last half hour overrun when it comes to Dynamite. Maybe it's an anniversary thing, or maybe it's something they can do every single week at this point. Yeah, I mean, no, it's great. I think it's really healthy news, not just for AEW, but also for professional wrestling at large. It feels very much like the next stage of the pro wrestling, I guess, wars, if you want to call them that, between, a very, very clear number one and a very distant number two, that these will be fought on streaming platforms. And, it's healthy. It's really healthy for the industry and for professional wrestling.
Yeah, it's pretty unthinkable if we were thinking back to 2017 and imagining that there would be, at a minimum, two companies strongly competing as they are for talent. For fans too, but the distance between number one and two is large. But there's two big companies that are paying well and paying competitively for wrestling talent, which was just a laughable notion. What is that, 7 years ago?
Mm. We also, in the Sports Business Journal article, got. I mean, this is something that you have been stating for a long time, Brandon, your belief that WBD had some kind of stake in AEW. You asked Tony Khan about this, and it was
Dave asked Tony Khan about that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, it was Dave that asked about it. And Tony Khan...
I was revisiting the clips today, so yes.
In this roundabout way, pretty much gave notion to that fact. But in the SBJ article, it did state that WBD also keeps its equity stake in AEW, but the size of it was not disclosed. So, yeah. I mean, that seems pretty factual at this point that WBD does have some kind of ownership. I'd be very curious if that was right from the get-go that they had that, or in that early 2020 renegotiation, if they kind of realized what this property meant to them.
I believe it's right from the get-go, but that's just a belief. I mean, the quote from Tony Khan about a year ago, this was September 2023, so this is just before WrestleDream last year. He was asked by Dave if there was any stake that WBD had. He said that is something that would be between us, but I would also be open to that, to Warner Brothers having a piece or a bigger piece potentially. So very ambiguous response. He didn't deny it, and he also, my decoding of that is, yeah, they own a minority stake. I'm not going to confirm or deny that. I want to keep my dealings with my biggest business partner as private as possible and protected as possible, and not do anything that might potentially upset them or mess stuff up for us. But yeah, they own a stake, but he did point out that he has complete control. He said he has all the voting power. So I assume he has all or virtually all the voting power. And as we know from our lessons in WWE, you can have multiple classes of shares in a company where one person has a disproportionate amount of the control, despite others having larger portions of the shares. You could have somebody like Vince McMahon who has 10 times as many votes for each individual share that he has, and he can have a third of the company, but have 80% of the votes. There sounds like there's something similar happening there at AEW, where WBD may have a minority stake that either has no voting power or has diminished voting power.
As we look at AEW entering this next phase of the company and reaching this level of profitability, this is a very, very healthy deal. Where do you see Tony Khan putting a lot of these resources in terms of like growing out the company? Like, what do you see as sort of the next phase of AEW now that this renewal is behind them, and for the next 3 to 4 years they're on very solid footing? Like, where do you see AEW putting a lot of this revenue towards?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have great answers to that. This is where maybe I'm kind of an AEW pessimist in that I would be a little worried about the popularity of AEW going forward, and if it's going to be strong enough to continue to sustain ratings that are as highly ranked as they are now, which in the case of Dynamite specifically is quite strong. But, I don't know. I mean, this trajectory of attendance is not encouraging. The trajectory of ratings, while good enough for now, is not encouraging. And I think AEW has been captured by the very thing that provided its opportunity, which was many of the creative philosophies and production choices of Vince McMahon. Got another former WWE wrestler joining AEW tonight, in addition to that, and then not just talent, but people in production as well, who have been basically drawn out of WWE in its worst content era, arguably ever, to join AEW to be what is supposed to be an alternative to WWE, while WWE, on the other hand, has become more popular than it was in many years.
While we have you here, we did want to just quickly discuss the NXT numbers from their debut on CW. They ended up doing 895,000 viewers and a .26 in the demo. So it's like right in the range, I think, of what we had guesstimated.
Yes, you were today. Very accurate. I think you said .25 and 900, and it was 895.26. You were almost right on.
That's it. Well, once in a while. So this was one, though. It was interesting once you put up the quarter hours to see in hour 2, not so much in the 18 to 49 demo, but of overall viewership. It would seem like there was a portion that did want to see the JD Vance Tim Walz showdown, which attracted 43 million viewers across all the networks that carried the debate.
Yeah, you do see that a bit of a sag here in the second hour, and that is when the debate started. The debate started at 9, so maybe people wanted to see JD Vance and Tim Walz have a cordial conversation about American politics.
The presidential debate, not enough to cause anything, but this is an NXT crowd. They want to know who's the next in waiting. But
it wasn't a huge impact. In NXT a few weeks ago went against the presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and that appeared to have no effect on the rating, at least on a whole average from week to week. It did a very similar rating to what it did in surrounding weeks. But this was, I have to say, this is kind of what we predicted, but I have to say that's a success. It's a success we expected it to be. The biggest demo number year to date, as we looked at earlier today, is a .15. This did a .26, which is almost double that. So yeah, I mean, WWE and CW put out a press release, so they're clearly thrilled about it and they want attention. Sending their press release out around the same time that the WBD AEW-TV deal press releases were being sent out, but they're clearly very happy with it, and it's the top show for their network year to date in the demo. Not in total viewership, which is that award show did over 1 million viewers on CW.
Yeah, but I mean, Geez, a 0.15, that's your biggest demo number of the year. Like, I don't see NXT falling under a 0.15 unless there's like significant circumstances affecting that. So it's like NXT should be major fuel for CW for Tuesday nights. Next week, it will be week 2 of NXT, which is also on the road, featuring Randy Orton. And we did see tonight that Title Tuesday will go head-to-head with that show, but only for 1 hour, because Dynamite will air from 9 till 11, while NXT will go from 8 till 10. And as we did see last night, it appears there will be no overruns for NXT. So there will be no
You're not going to
bleed
see any overruns, I think, with this being a broadcast network that it has to hand it over to affiliates. I would think now this will be a different case when it's going against another wrestling show, if even for an hour. But I would think, it would be a surprise to me, I guess, if NXT's normal rating, once things even out here after several weeks, I guess, maybe 20% lower than what this debut did, which would still be about a 0.20. I guess this kind of tells you can kind of expect similar ratings on CW as on USA, which is kind of what I was saying for many months here, is that I think that the factors will be offsetting. It's a lower profile broadcast network. USA is a higher profile cable network, but the reach is greater because it's CW and people with antennas can pick it up. So I think it's going to be about a break even for viewership for them, and it's going to be on a network that really needs the viewership, as CW struggles to put up numbers that are similar to halfway decent cable networks.
All right. Well, Brandon will have, I am sure, much more coming up this Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, where he timed this out. The big news story of the year coincides with
everything is intentional.
The free edition of WrestleNomics Radio, which you can send your questions in to Brandon at WrestleNomics.com that he takes each week. Ask him every question imaginable, from what does this mean? What does this mean in the grand scheme of everything? He will answer all of those questions on Sunday. Yes. And you can also check out our show from earlier today, where we were discussing the different topics attached to this TV deal, and joined by guest Steve New, that everybody is chatting about.
Is everyone chatting about that? Is that getting some aggregation?
I know it's crossed over when I get texts and DMs, but it seems to be people enjoyed the interview. So there you go. Our AEW Wrestlers Misclassified is the title of today's show, and you can catch me and Brandon Wednesdays at 1 Eastern. And we thank you very much for staying up late with the extra edition of AEW Dynamite, tacking on 30 minutes at the end of it.
Yes, I'm usually not up this late. But for the biggest overrun in AEW history, you do make exceptions. Well, I mean, it only comes around every so often. Hopefully every 5 years. This will not be a habit. I hope not. Thank you very much, Brandon. All right. See you guys. Thank you, Brandon.
Hey, if you like this video, consider joining our Patreon, the Post Wrestling Cafe. Multiple bonus podcasts every week, ad-free shows, and access to our full archive. Otherwise, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Thank you for watching.